Hello, and welcome back to Talk Freelance to Me, the podcast dedicated to empowering women freelancers everywhere. I'm your host, Ashley Cisneros Mejia. And as you can see today, we are doing a special kind of episode, a solo episode, where I'm just going to do kind of a reflection about 2023, about ideas about how this year went, discussing key things that I learned, and share with you a little bit about my plans for 2024. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to everyone who's listened to even just one episode of this podcast. Thank you to everyone who's reshared one of our social media posts. If you haven't already joined us online, we're everywhere you love to hang out. Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Pinterest, YouTube Shorts, even X, if you're still over there. Please join in the conversation and join in the community. If you have ideas for future shows, maybe you have a question that you really would love for me to dig in for you, I would really love to do that. I want to make this podcast useful. I want to make it relevant to what you're seeing in your own business. Email me. My email address is ashley@talkfreelancetome.com. ashley@talkfreelancetome.com. I'd really love to hear from you. So over the course of starting this podcast, there's a couple aha moments and truths that I have experienced. And some of these, well, both of these things are things you probably have heard of before. There's certainly things that I have shared with other people. But I can tell you that this podcast really gave me a lot of fulfillment from what it feels like to produce content rather than just consuming it. Whether you are a writer or a graphic designer, a designer, maybe you're an influencer even, or you create content, it's really important for creatives like us to prioritize actually creating our own content and not just consuming what others have curated for us. And this journey has shown me the importance of really starting, no matter how unprepared you might feel. I have found this over and over in my career. Maybe you have the same. You're never going to feel fully ready. Clarity and motivation come from taking action, not just planning, not just researching, not just looking at what already exists in the marketplace. It's about taking that first step. And it can be something small, like recording your first podcast on your phone in your bedroom closet. It could be jotting down an outline for that first poem for your book of poems. To every creative soul who's watching this, if you have an idea or a dream, my message to you is to just start. Just start. It can be ugly. It should be ugly. It can be messy. It doesn't have to be perfect. It shouldn't be perfect. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't drown yourself in endless research. Go ahead and grab your phone. Go ahead and grab your notebook. Turn off your distractions and just create. That motivation, you'll get more motivated the more that you do. Sometimes we wait for motivation first and it never comes. The second thing that I want to share with you, something that I've learned from this process, is to just stop comparing yourself. You've probably heard that comparison is the thief of joy, and it's so true. For me, I had a whole career in different things, in journalism, and I had a marketing agency before starting this podcast. And a lot of times in the past several years when I wanted to start a podcast, but I was taking care of very small children, especially during the pandemic when my husband was working, he still works in healthcare. And so my workload at home increased and changed in a big way. And I would look at what other people were doing in terms of podcasting or content creation. And I would compare myself. I would get frustrated thinking, why can't I do the same? I'm just as ambitious. I have ideas. But not everybody has 3 kids, or not everybody has a spouse. Not everybody's obligations and commitments and responsibilities look the same. We can't compare our day one with someone's middle or someone's peak, certainly. We don't know what people have gone through, and we don't know what their specific season looks like. So we can't expect the same output from ourselves as someone who maybe has more resources, more connections, more experience, more finances, more time, etc. Everybody has their own journey. And that was something that I knew but maybe needed to be reminded of. And this podcast experience really affirmed that for me. Next, I want to touch on one tool or body of tools that really helped make this easier. AI. It's something that at the beginning of this year, you couldn't go to any conference, look at a webinar, an email in this space and not hear about AI, specifically ChatGPT. As a print journalist, this experience of going into podcasting and audio, it's a whole new thing. There's a learning curve for me, and I'm still learning every day. I will tell you that one of the things that made it easier for me to create this podcast and be somewhat consistent with producing something every other week was using AI tools, was using ChatGPT, which I know a lot of writers, some writers really hate it. I think some of us have view it less like a threat now than we did in January, February of this year. I can tell you that I've used tools like Otter.com to get transcripts of my podcast interviews and create show notes and takeaways. I can get timestamps of different things that I'm producing. I use another tool called Opus.pro. That's what I use to make the little video clips to promote episodes, as well as ChatGPT. I've used an app called Wonder to create images just with basic prompts. And I can tell you that ChatGPT and some of these tools like Otter.ai, that has been a saving grace for someone like me that has 3 little kids and is, doing all of this myself. I don't have like a VA. I don't have a producer or anybody. I do have an editor. I do outsource that piece. But I will tell you, if you haven't looked into AI tools and you have a creative project that you're thinking about for 2024, I'd highly suggest looking into tools, and don't just stop at ChatGPT. There's tons and tons of different AI tools that you can use to make your content creation process or your creative process in general easier. Now that we've talked a bit about the tools and things I've learned, I want to highlight just a couple things that I learned from the first couple guests that we have. And I'm not going to talk about all of them today. I'll do some more in our other recap for the beginning of the year. Laura Figueroa Hernandez, she was the first interviewee and guest that I had on the show. She's a White House correspondent, a dear friend of mine. And I loved how she was sharing the importance of fact-checking, of getting research from credible sources like universities and subject matter experts, and corroborating basically information that we find in whatever we produce. And of course, she's coming from a journalism perspective, but I think it was great in having that reminder for all of us who produce content, right? There's so much noise in the internet and in the world in general. If you go the extra mile to take that responsibility and to really be critical about what you're saying and what you're putting out, your content's going to be that much better and you're going to have that much more credibility. Lola Bovell was another guest that I had early on. She's an attorney turned real estate investor. She really highlighted Gary Keller's idea of the one big thing. Basically, when you get to your desk in the morning and you have that long to-do list and you have text messages and phone messages and emails to respond to, don't. Look at your to-do list and circle the one big thing, the one big action that you can take. You can make a move on, take action on, that will move you closer to where you want to be and your big goals. Sometimes we get so reactive in that we are responding to the needs of others so much, but we're not getting any closer to what we really want in our business. And by hyper focusing on that one big thing and prioritizing it, you're going to get leaps and bounds more traction in whatever you're trying to do. I loved how Lindsay Diven talked about the perspective she had as a person who hires freelancers. She said that she really looks at the questions that freelancers ask her during the interview process when you're trying to get a quote and you're in the business development phase of the interaction. And she was sharing, she also looks to see if a freelancer has a specific process already created that they can guide her in. She really reminded us that people hire freelancers because they're busy. They hire freelancers because they don't have capacity to get something done. They don't have a skill that's necessary to get something done. They have overflow work maybe, and they need help with that. We're supposed to make their jobs easier, not harder. We're supposed to make things more pleasant, not complicated. And so she's looking not just for someone to be the technician and to actually do whatever the work is. She's looking for that, almost a consultant, someone to guide her through, to understand the bigger picture, to make recommendations to her, and for it to just be an easy, seamless experience that helps her get done what she needs to get done, but also adds value and is not a pain. I loved that reminder so much. Really quick, I also want to touch on Marielou Mandl. She is another guest that I interviewed early on. She's a friend of mine from my hometown. And I loved how she talked about eliminating obstacles in your workflow. During that episode, and you can look on the our YouTube channel for the video, but she gave us a tour of her work setup, of her workstation. And she talked about being a content creator and an influencer. Initially, she had different stations in her home. So she had a place where she would record content. She had a place where she would edit the content. She had a place where she would get ready. She does a lot of on-camera work and hosting work. So she had a place where she would do her hair and her makeup in order to get ready. And she realized that by having everything kind of disjointed or in different locations, it was actually interrupting some of the flow. By seeing where everything was located, she was able to identify gaps in places where she could streamline her workflow and add efficiencies. So she collapsed all of those workstations into one. And so basically she has her work area where she has her cosmetics box and her makeup tools where she can get dressed really quick or put her lipstick on before she's going to be on camera. She has space in that same area to actually do unboxings and to talk about, to present information. She has her background and her lighting already set up. She has her cameras set up, and those cameras feed right into her computer. So as soon as she's done recording, she can edit right away and release into the wild. And that's what she really recommends to all of us fellow creators, is to create, release, and repeat. That's Mariellou's tagline, because she wants you to get into that habit of creating and releasing into the wild and doing it over and over again to get better and better and to better, but not to focus so much on the perfection, but the act of doing. I loved that. And even if you're not a content creator in the same way that she is, I think we can all learn from her example. How can we look at our process? And I suggest that you do that. Get Post-its, write down each step of your process of whatever it is you do. Maybe you're a graphic designer or a photographer, or you write down what that looks like and identify where are the places that you seem to slow down, where are the places that get stuck for whatever reason, or where are there places where we can improve things, streamline things? How can we make things easier for ourselves so that we can get more work done? And that's not to get to just work and work and work. It's to get our work done so we have more space and more time to rest, to relax, to exercise, to pursue our hobbies, to just be a whole person. It's not just about work all the time, but we can be efficient so that we have more space to enjoy our lives. Finally, I want to talk about a couple announcements. So looking ahead, I am thrilled to announce that we are gearing up for a brand new season. I'm going to be interviewing more incredible freelance business owners, a lot of writers, but also different kinds of freelancers as well. And we're also going to be welcoming our very first intern. You'll get to meet her on a future episode. We're also going to be offering new programs and resources to support fellow business owners. Together, I think that we will continue to support one another. That's my vision. I want us to continue to support one another, empower each other in this dynamic world of freelance. Thank you again for being part of this community, this incredible journey. Just remember that you are not alone in this freelance adventure. I'm here. Talk Freelance to Me is here. Our community is here. Let's continue to grow and learn together. Here's to a fantastic new year. See you in 2024.